Hi there, I'm Marissa Santora with In Our Shoes, and today I want to address a question, actually a couple of questions that came through on the survey, on the newsletter, which relate to your manager and communicating with your manager and making sure you get credit for your ideas and that your recommendations and your proposals are heard. You are being listened to, and those ideas and recommendations are acted on. Other questions that came through on the survey had to do with managing up, right? Managing up to your leadership, not just your direct reports, if you have a team, if you don't have a team, but really, aligning with your management, whether it be one or, a group of leaders that you're, responsible for producing results to. And how do you do that effectively? So the best way I can answer that, I thought would be a little bit of fun, is I'm going to be actually addressing an excerpt in my book, Own Your Authority. I'm in the chapter called Education, Not Ego. If you're in the hardcover format, it is on page 98 that I'm reading from. If you're using the audiobook, you want to flip to the section that starts with Education, Not Ego. So I'm going to read a little bit here, and then I'll expand on why I put this in the book and how it relates to you and your results with your manager. Suppose that you are a health coach working with someone who wants to lose 50 pounds in 9 months. So you're a health coach. As the nutrition expert you are, you can get your client to that goal, but what's next after those 9 months are through? What if your client now needs someone to keep him or her accountable to an exercise regimen, say 100 sit-ups 3 times a week? There's always going to be a what's next question in the back of your clients' minds. As a business leader, the answer lies in you painting that future vision and mapping out how your plan can help your clients get there. Sharing a program's themes can also function as a roadmap depicting an exact timeline of what's happening when. Now let's go back to you, the hypothetical health coach. What if you give your client a timeline to follow in his or her cooking and nutrition habits in the first 6 months and then transition to a fitness regimen in the next half of the year? This could later turn into a time and stress management program. New products, more value. Do you see how it works? Mindset shift. You are not a one-hit wonder. You are a long-term investment whose return on results is not based solely on what you deliver today, but on what you promise for tomorrow. That long-term vision. Lead your managers, peers, prospects, business partners, and stakeholders by walking them through the entire path they should take from day one through to the long term. Now, I'll expand a little bit more on this here. The reason I put this in the book is because this is a perfect example of managing up, where you really want to get to a state where you are actually able to answer your manager's sentences for them, your stakeholders, your business partners. And I spoke about this in an earlier blog post and even some of the videos. In order for you to get to that stage, right, of knowing what's keeping them up and knowing how to finish their sentences, is you really have to put yourself in their shoes, right? Really put yourself in their shoes and understand what their pain points and what struggles they have. Now, a blind spot that I've often seen as in professionals, including myself, at some point in my career, is that sometimes your manager's pain points and struggles aren't really based on what's really happening on the ground, right? They're realistic, practical, day-to-day grind, which your team might be experiencing. A perfect example of this is virtual working, right? Remote work. The communication channel dynamic has changed, right? So how do we engage? How do we be present and get each other's attention while we're remote and still have those fluid conversations that we used to have? Maybe your management isn't really in tune with that or aware of that, or just assumes that you can figure it out. So, sometimes your manager's problems aren't necessarily your problems, but unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, you do have to get their attention, right? And so if you feel like your recommendations, your proposals, your ideas are falling on deaf ears, then you're going to have to do something new and different to get their attention. And the best and fastest, quickest path to do that is to answer their sentences for them by knowing their unique challenges, whatever might be even top of mind right now, right in your next meeting. You can open with that and then veer them off to maybe some of the practical realities and problems that you're having. The short-term, the long-term planning, right? You also want to stay high up. You don't want to go too in the details, right? It's like, you know, they have their eyes and ears in a million different directions, and you want to make sure that when you're clearly focusing on whether they called the meeting or you called the meeting, or if it's a one-on-one regular, you know, type of meet here, you really want to make sure that you stick to the focal point of what might be on their minds, but make sure you don't go too granular and lose them. Another blind spot I find in line with this this challenge is that sometimes we tend to talk about the process and how things are done and all the things that happen in between the actual results. When in reality, your manager, right, if you want to manage up, doesn't care about all that nitty-gritty, right? They don't want to hear about all the little details. They don't want to hear necessarily the griping or the real life, legitimate, you know, problems or maybe even complaints that are happening on the ground. Not that they don't care about them, but, you know, if you can roll that up to a succinct couple of bullets as far as, you know, what the results are that you're trying to get to, you know, mention the challenges, weave them in, but don't go too far, you will lose them, right? And so when I gave this example with the health coach, you know, you go right in, you have a client, let's say you're a health coach, you have a client, they want to lose, you know, 50 pounds, let's just say, for example. And so that's your goal, to get them to 50 pounds. But what's the next step, right? That's what I mean by staying 2 steps ahead of your management. What is the next problem that you are being called to support them with, right? And maybe they don't even know that they even have a problem, which is a whole nother, you know, set of another topic that we need to talk about. But you know, so now you've helped your clients lose 50 pounds. What's the next problem? All right. Now I'm not a health coach, so I know a lot of health coaches and I know a lot of people, and I've been myself wanting to lose weight. My next problem, if I were looking to lose 50 pounds, would probably be nutrition, cooking and eating right. So great, you'll help me lose 50 pounds. Now how are you going to help me live a healthy lifestyle, right? You're not a one-hit wonder. You're not someone that just knocks out that program for me and get me to that 50-pound loss. Now, as my health coach, you have to help me stay there. So my next problem, right, the next change I need your support in is probably going to be, again, making this up, need you to help me come up with a good nutritional lifestyle, healthy lifestyle change, right? So that's my next problem. Now, I may not verbalize that to you, but because you're an expert in your field, you've already thought 2 steps ahead, you're answering my sentences for me, and you say, you know what, Marissa, congratulations, we do the happy dance, we're celebrating, you lost the 50 pounds. Now, I hate to break the news to you, but we got to keep it off. Right? It's not enough to lose it. You got to keep it off. So that might be the next thing that you help me with, right? That's why I put this example in the book. What is the next problem or set of problems that your management, the blind spots, he or she may not be looking for? That's where you give value. That's where you're communicating value. And so I go a little bit further into this here in terms of the short-term and the long-term plan. And I'll just read another paragraph from that page. Again, I'm on page 98 of the hardcover format. In the audiobook, it's under Education, Not Ego, a little further into that section. Once you present a long-term plan, now again, this is assuming that you've now gone a couple of steps ahead of them, right? You're a couple of steps ahead. That's your role for management, a couple of steps ahead of them. You've presented the long-term plan that showcases the themes and benefits. Your team can always circle back and fill in the details of the framework it needs to get into motion. Establish priorities as you move along with your team and reuse that blueprint later on in your next role. So the reason I mention that is because, you know, now you want to go into the details with your team and really get to that next section of implementation. And how are you going to do that? So don't worry about the how, right? And the processes. Worry about getting the message out, getting the vision out, putting that out there, and then you could always circle back with your team in terms of getting, you know, getting the implementation in motion. So this is just a little piece of that from the book, but it's part of all the programs that I teach and coach on. I hope this supports you, and I'm still going through all those questions in the survey, so hang on with me. And if you join the book club, welcome. We have more to come. All right, I'll talk to you soon. Bye now.